Hare Krishna. Welcome back, everyone, to the live studios here in Radha Lane, Houston, Texas, right next to Sri Sri Radha Neelamadhava Mandir, the biggest. Of course, in Texas, everything's big. Everything's got to be big in Texas. So we have the biggest mandir in ISKCON, North America. So we're going deeper into the Srimad-Bhagavatam. We reached we're towards the end of the second chapter of the first canto. And before we go further, we'd like to read the glorification of Sanatana Goswami of Srimad-Bhagavatam, called Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. It appears in one of his books called Sri Krishna Lila Stava, and it's verse 412 to 416. 12, 13, 14, 15, 5 verses only. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of light to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvandudita Ditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nistadaga Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Saduta Dayan Atini Chutatakara Hanamun Jagadachin Mam Premna Rit Kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam. Canto 1, Chapter 2, Divinity and Divine Service, starting with text 28 and 29. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Makaha, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriyaha, Vasudeva param Jnanam, Vasudeva param Tapaha, Vasudeva paro Dharmo, Vasudeva para Gatihi. Another very famous verse. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please Him. Yoga is for realizing Him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by Him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know Him. Religion, dharma, is rendering loving service unto Him. He is the supreme goal of life. Purport: that Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is the only object of worship is confirmed in these two shlokas. In the Vedic literature, there is the same objective: establishing one's relationship with Vasudeva, acting according to that relationship. Is there a long A in Vasudeva in the book?
Did you skip some?
Yes. After the Y.
Huh?
In my book, it's after the Y.
There's no Vasudeva in
Here, it's in the purport. It says, in the Vedic literature, there is the same objective: establishing one's relationship with Vasudeva.
There's no Vasudeva in the we don't have.
What does it say?
It just says establishing one's relationship and ultimately reviving our lost loving service unto him.
So this is it. Vasudeva was left out. It doesn't make any sense. Establishing one's relationship and acting according to that, to him, it's not complete. It doesn't have the subject. The subject is Vasudeva, but here it's got Vasudeva without a long A. Could you make a note and remind me? Thank you. In the Vedic literature, there is the same objective: establishing one's relationship with Vasudeva, acting according to that relationship, and ultimately reviving our lost loving service unto him. That is the sum and substance of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita, the same theory is confirmed by the Lord in his own words. The ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to know him only. All the revealed scriptures are prepared by the Lord through his incarnation in the body of Srila Vyasadeva, just to remind the fallen souls conditioned by material nature of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. No demigod can award freedom from material bondage. That is the verdict of all the Vedic literatures. Impersonalists who have no information of the personality of Godhead minimize the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord and put him on equal footing with all other living beings. And for this act, such impersonalists get freedom from material bondage only with great difficulty. They can surrender unto him only after many, many births in the culture of transcendental knowledge. One may argue that the Vedic activities are based on sacrificial ceremonies. That is true. But all such sacrifices are also meant for realizing the truth about Vasudeva. Another name of Vasudeva is yajna, sacrifice. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that all sacrifices and all activities are to be conducted for the satisfaction of yajna, or Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. This is the case also with the yoga systems. Yoga means to get into touch with the Supreme Lord. The process, however, includes several bodily features, such as asana, dhyana, pranayama, and meditation, and all of them are meant for concentrating upon the localized aspect of Vasudeva, represented as Paramatma. Paramatma realization is but partial realization of Vasudeva, and if one is successful in that attempt, one realizes Vasudeva in full. But by ill luck, most yogis are stranded by the powers of mysticism achieved through the bodily process. Ill-fated yogis are given a chance in the next birth by being placed in the families of good learned brahmanas or in the families of rich merchants in order to execute the unfinished task of Vasudeva realization. If such fortunate brahmanas and sons of rich men properly utilize the chance, they can easily realize Vasudeva by good association with saintly persons. Unfortunately, such preferred persons are captivated again by material wealth and honor, and thus they practically forget the aim of life. This is also so for the culture of knowledge. According to the Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 items in culturing knowledge. By such culture of knowledge, one becomes gradually prideless, devoid of vanity, non-violent, forbearing, simple, devoted to the great spiritual master, and self-controlled. By culture of knowledge, one becomes unattached to hearth and home and becomes conscious of the miseries due to death, birth, old age, and disease. And all culture of knowledge culminates in devotional service to the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Therefore, Vasudeva is the ultimate aim in culturing all different branches of knowledge. Culture of knowledge leading one to the transcendental plane of meeting Vasudeva is real knowledge. Physical knowledge in its various branches is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita as ajnana, or the opposite of real knowledge. The ultimate aim of physical knowledge is to satisfy the senses, which means prolongation of the term of material existence, and thereby continuance of the threefold miseries. So prolonging the miserable life of material existence is nescience, but the same physical knowledge leading to the way of spiritual understanding helps one to end the miserable life of physical existence and to begin the life of spiritual existence on the plane of Vasudeva. The same applies to all kinds of austerities. Tapasya means voluntary acceptance of bodily pains to achieve some higher end of life. Ravana and Hiranyakashipu underwent a severe type of bodily torture to achieve the end of sense gratification. Sometimes modern politicians also undergo severe types of austerities to achieve some political end. This is not actually tapasya. One should accept voluntary bodily inconvenience for the sake of knowing Vasudeva, because that is the way of real austerities. Otherwise, all forms of austerities are classified as modes of passion and ignorance. Passion and ignorance cannot end the miseries of life. Only the mode of goodness can mitigate the threefold miseries of life. Vasudeva and Devaki, the so-called father and mother of Lord Krishna, underwent penances to get Vasudeva as their son. Lord Sri Krishna is the father of all living beings. Therefore, he is the original living being of all other living beings. He is the original eternal enjoyer amongst all other enjoyers. Therefore, no one can be his begetting father, as the ignorant may think. Lord Sri Krishna agreed to become the son of Vasudeva and Devaki upon being pleased with their service, with their severe austerities. Therefore, if any austerities have to be done, they must be done to achieve the end of knowledge, Vasudeva. Vasudeva is the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. As explained before, the original personality of Godhead expands himself by innumerable forms. Such expansion of forms is made possible by his various energies. His energies are also multifarious, and his internal energies are superior, and external energies inferior in quality. They are explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the para and the apara prakritis. So his expansions of various forms which take place via the internal energies are superior forms, whereas the expansions which take place via the external energies are inferior forms. The living entities are also his expansions. The living entities who are expanded by his internal potency are eternally liberated persons, whereas those who are expanded in terms of the material energies are eternally conditioned souls. Therefore, all culture of knowledge, austerities, sacrifice, and activities should be aimed at changing the quality of the influence that is acting upon us. For the present, we are all being controlled by the external energy of the Lord, and just to change the quality of the influence, we must endeavor to cultivate spiritual energy. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that those who are Mahatmas, or those whose minds have been so broadened as to be engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, are under the influence of the internal potency, and the effect is that such broad-minded living beings are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord without deviation. That should be the aim of life, and that is the verdict of all the Vedic literatures. No one should bother himself with fruitive activities or dry speculation about transcendental knowledge. Everyone should at once engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor should one worship different demigods who work as different hands of the Lord for creation, maintenance, or destruction of the material world. There are innumerable powerful demigods who look over the external management of the material world. They are all different assisting hands of Lord Vasudeva. Even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma are included in the list of demigods, but Lord Vishnu, or Vasudeva, is always transcendentally situated. Even though he accepts the quality of goodness of the material world, he is still transcendental to all the material modes. The following example will clear that matter more explicitly. In the prison house, there are the prisoners and the managers of the prison house. Both the managers and the prisoners are bound by the laws of the king. But even though the king sometimes comes to the prison, he is not bound by the laws of the prison house. The king is therefore always transcendental to the laws of the prison house, as the Lord is always transcendental to the laws of the material world. Text 30. In the beginning of material creation, that absolute personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, in his transcendental position, created the energies of cause and effect by his own internal energy. Purport. The position of the Lord is always transcendental, because the causal and effectual energies required for the creation of the material world were also created by him. He is unaffected, therefore, by the qualities of the material modes. His existence, form, activities, and paraphernalia all existed before the material creation. He is all spiritual and has nothing to do with the qualities of the material world, which are qualitatively distinct from the spiritual qualities of the Lord. Text 31. After creating the material substance, the Lord, Vasudeva, expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Purport. The living entities are separated parts and parcels of the Lord, and the conditioned living entities who are unfit for the spiritual kingdom are strewn within the material world to enjoy matter to the fullest extent. As Paramatma, an eternal friend of the living entities, the Lord, by one of his plenary portions, accompanies the living entities to guide them in their material enjoyment and to become witness to all activities. While the living entities enjoy the material conditions, the Lord maintains his transcendental position without being affected by the material atmosphere. In the Vedic literatures, Shruti, it is said that there are two birds in one tree. One of them is eating the fruit of the tree, while the other is witnessing the actions. The witness is the Lord, and the fruit eater is the living entity. The fruit eater, living entity, has forgotten his real identity and is overwhelmed in the fruitive activities of the material conditions. But the Lord, Paramatma, is always full in transcendental knowledge. That is the difference between the supersoul and the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul, the living entity, is controlled by the laws of nature, while the Paramatma, or the supersoul, is the controller of the material energy. Text 32. The Lord, as supersoul, pervades all things, just as fire permeates wood. and so he appears to be of many varieties, though he is the absolute one without a second. Purport. Lord Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by one of his plenary parts, expands himself all over the material world, and his existence can be perceived even within the atomic energy. Matter, antimatter, proton, neutron, in all these one can perceive the manifestation of the Paramatma feature of the Lord by proper spiritual culture. As from wood, fire can be manifested, or as butter can be churned out of milk, so also the presence of the Lord as Paramatma can be felt by the process of legitimate hearing and chanting of the transcendental subjects, which are especially treated in the Vedic literatures like the Upanishads and the Vedanta. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the bona fide explanation of these Vedic literatures. The Lord can be realized through the oral reception of the transcendental message, and that is the only way to experience the transcendental subject. As fire is kindled from wood by another fire, the divine consciousness of man can similarly be kindled by another divine grace. His divine grace, the spiritual master, can kindle the spiritual fire from the wood-like living entity by imparting proper spiritual messages injected through the receptive ear. Therefore, one is required to approach the proper spiritual master with receptive ears only, and thus divine existence is gradually realized. The difference between animality and humanity lies in this process only. A human being can hear properly, whereas an animal cannot. Text 33. The super soul enters into the bodies of the created beings who were influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of these modes by the subtle mind. Purport. There are 8,400,000 species of living beings, beginning from the highest intellectual being, Brahma, down to the insignificant ant, and all of them are enjoying the material world according to the desires of the subtle mind and gross material body. The gross material body is based on the conditions of the subtle mind, and the senses are created according to the desire of the living being. The Lord, as Paramatma, helps the living being to get material happiness because the living being is helpless in all respects in obtaining what he desires. He proposes, and the Lord disposes. In another sense, the living beings are parts and parcels of the Lord. They are therefore one with the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the living beings in all varieties of bodies have been claimed by the Lord as his sons. The sufferings and enjoyments of the sons are indirectly the sufferings and enjoyments of the Father. Still, the Father is not in any way affected directly by the suffering and enjoyment of the sons. He is so kind that he constantly remains with the living being as Paramatma and always tries to convert the living being towards the real happiness. Text 34. Thus the Lord of the universe maintains all planets inhabited by the demigods, men, and lower animals. Assuming the roles of incarnations, he performs pastimes to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. Purport. There are innumerable material universes, and in each and every universe there are innumerable planets inhabited by different grades of living entities in different modes of nature. The Lord Vishnu incarnates himself in each and every one of them, and in each and every type of living society. He manifests his transcendental pastimes amongst them, just to create the desire to go back to Godhead. The Lord does not change his original transcendental position, but he appears to be differently manifested according to the particular time, circumstances, and society. Sometimes he incarnates himself or empowers a suitable living being to act for him. But in either case, the purpose is the same. The Lord wants the suffering living beings to go back home, back to Godhead. The happiness which the living beings are hankering for is not to be found within any corner of the innumerable universes and material planets. The eternal happiness by which the living being wants, the eternal happiness which the living being wants is obtainable in the kingdom of God. But the forgetful living beings, under the influence of the material modes, have no information of the kingdom of God. The Lord therefore comes to propagate the message of the kingdom of God, either personally or as an incarnation, or through his bona fide representative as the good Son of God. Such incarnations or sons of God are not making propaganda for going back to Godhead only within the human society. Their work is going on in all types of societies, amongst demigods and those other than human beings. Thus, and the Bhaktivedanta purports, the first canto, second chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Divinity and Divine Service. So this chapter gives kind of like a succinct summary of the process of devotional service and the basic elements of the science. And now the book will elaborate on all these points that have been made already. Okay, this answers another question, if you remember, that was answered, Sutta Goswami, by the sages of Naimisharanya. Please explain to us the incarnations of God. So he's going to give a little succinct summary. It's not possible to enumerate the incarnations of God because they're unlimited. Chapter 3. Krishna is the source of all incarnations. Text 1. Sutta said, in the beginning of the creation, the Lord first expanded himself in the universal form of the Purusha incarnation and manifested all the ingredients for the material creation. And thus at first there was the creation of the 16 principles of material action. This was for the purpose of creating the material universes. Purport. The Bhagavad Gita states that the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, maintains these material universes by extending his plenary expansions. So this Purusha form is the confirmation of the same principle. The original personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, or Lord Krishna, who is famous as the king of the son of King Vasudeva, or King Nanda, is full with all opulences, all potencies, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. A part of his opulence is manifested as impersonal Brahman, and part of his opulences are manifested as Paramatma. This Purusha feature of the same personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the original Paramatma manifestation of the Lord. There are 3 Purusha features who affect the material creation, and this form, who is known as the Karanodakashayi Vishnu, is the first of the 3. The others are known as the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and the Chirodakashayi Vishnu, which we shall know one after another. The innumerable universes are generated from the skin holes of this Karanodakashayi Vishnu, and in each one of the universes, the Lord enters as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also mentioned that the material world is created at certain intervals and then again destroyed. This creation and destruction is done by the Supreme Will because of the conditioned souls, or the Nitya-Baddha, living beings. The Nitya-Baddha, or the eternally conditioned souls, have the sense of individuality, or ahankara, which dictates them sense enjoyment, which they are unable to have constitutionally. The Lord is the only enjoyer, and all others are enjoyed. The living beings are predominated enjoyers, but the eternally conditioned souls, forgetful of this constitutional position, have strong aspirations to enjoy. The chance to enjoy matter is given to the conditioned souls in the material world, and side by side they are given the chance to understand their real constitutional position. Those fortunate living entities who catch the truth and surrender unto the lotus feet of Vasudeva after many, many births in the material world join the eternally liberated souls and thus are allowed to enter into the kingdom of Godhead. After this, such fortunate living entities need not come again within the occasional material creation, but those who cannot catch the constitutional truth are again merged into the Mahatattva at the time of annihilation of the material creation. When the creation is again set up, this Mahatattva is again let loose. This Mahatattva contains all the ingredients of the material manifestations, including the conditioned souls. Primarily, this Mahatattva is divided into 16 parts, namely the 5 gross material elements and the 11 working instruments or senses. It is like the cloud in the clear sky. In the spiritual sky, the effulgence of Brahman is spread all around, and the whole system is dazzling in spiritual light. The Mahatattva is assembled in some corner of the vast, unlimited spiritual sky, and the part which is thus covered by the Mahatattva is called the material sky. This part of the spiritual sky, called the Mahatattva, is only an insignificant portion of the whole spiritual sky, and within this Mahatattva there are innumerable universes. All these universes are collectively produced by the Karanadakashayi Vishnu, also called the Mahavishnu, who simply throws his glance to impregnate the material sky. Text 2. A part of the Purusha lies down within the water of the universe. From the navel lake of his body sprouts a lotus stem, and from the lotus flower atop this stem, Brahma, the master of all engineers of the universe, becomes manifest. Purports. The first Purusha is the Karanadakashayi Vishnu. From his skin holes, innumerable universals have sprung up. In each and every universe, the Purusha enters as the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. He is lying within the half of the universe which is full with the water of his body. And from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu has sprung the stem of the lotus flower, the birthplace of Brahma, who is the father of all living beings and the master of all the demigod engineers engaged in the perfect design and working of the universal order. Within the stem of the lotus, there are 14 divisions of planetary systems, and the earthly planets are situated in the middle. Upwards, there are other, better planetary systems. In the topmost system is called Brahmaloka, or Satyaloka. Downwards, from the earthly planetary system, there are 7 lower planetary systems, inhabited by the Asuras and similar other materialistic living beings. From Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, there is the expansion of the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, who is the collective Paramatma of all living beings. He is called Hari, and from him all incarnations within the universe is expanded. Therefore, the conclusion is that the Purusha Avatara is manifested in 3 features. First, the Karanadakashayi, who creates aggregate material ingredients in the Mahatattva. Second, the Garbhodakashayi, who enters into each and every universe. And third, the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, who is the Paramatma of every material object, organic or inorganic. One who knows these plenary features of the personality of Godhead knows Godhead properly, and thus the knower becomes freed from the material conditions of birth, death, old age, and disease, and it is confirmed as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. In this shloka, the subject matter of Mahavishnu is summarized. The Mahavishnu lies down in some part of the spiritual sky by his own free will. Thus he lies on the ocean of Karana, from where he glances over his material nature, and the Mahatattva is at once created. Thus electrified by the power of the Lord, the material nature at once creates innumerable universes, just as in due course a tree decorates itself with innumerable grown fruits. The seed of the tree is sown by the cultivator, and the tree or creeper in due course becomes manifested with so many fruits. Nothing can take place without a cause. The Karna ocean is therefore called the causal ocean. Karna means causal. We should not foolishly accept the atheistic theory of creation. The description of the atheists is given in the Bhagavad Gita. The atheist does not believe in the Creator, but he cannot give a good theory to explain the creation. Material nature has no power to create without the power of the Purusha, just as the Prakriti, or woman, cannot produce a child without the connection of a Purusha, or man. The Purusha impregnates, and the Prakriti delivers. We should not expect milk from the fleshy bags on the neck of a goat, although they look like breast nipples. Similarly, we should not expect any creative power from the material ingredients. We must believe in the power of the Purusha, who impregnates Prakriti, or nature. Because the Lord wished to lie down in meditation, the material energy created innumerable universes at once. In each of them, the Lord lay down, and thus all the planets and the different paraphernalia were created at once by the will of the Lord. The Lord has unlimited potencies, and thus he can act as he likes by perfect planning, although personally he has nothing to do. No one is greater than or equal to him. That is the verdict of the Vedas. Text 3. It is believed that all the universal planetary systems are situated on the extensive body of the Purusha. But he has nothing to do with the created material ingredients. His body is eternally in spiritual existence par excellence. Purport. The conception of the Virat Rupa, or Vishwarupa, of the Supreme Absolute Truth, is especially meant for the neophyte who can hardly think of the transcendental form of the personality of Godhead. To him, a form means something of this material world, and therefore an opposite conception of the Absolute is necessary in the beginning to concentrate the mind on the power extension of the Lord. As stated above, the Lord extends his potency in the form of the Mahatattva, which includes all material ingredients. The extension of power by the Lord and the Lord himself personally are one in one sense, but at the same time, the Mahatattva is different from the Lord. Therefore, the potency of the Lord and the Lord are simultaneously different and non-different. The conception of the Virat Rupa, especially for the impersonalist, is thus non-different from the eternal form of the Lord. This eternal form of the Lord exists prior to the creation of the Mahatattva, and it is stressed here that the eternal form of the Lord is par excellence spiritual or transcendental to the modes of material nature. The very same transcendental form of the Lord is manifested by his internal potency, and the formation of his multifarious manifestations of incarnations is always of the same transcendental quality, without any touch of the Mahat Tattva. Text 4. The devotees, with their perfect eyes, see the transcendental form of the Purusha, who has thousands of legs, thighs, arms, and faces, all extraordinary. In that body, there are thousands of heads, ears, eyes, and noses. They are decorated with thousands of helmets and glowing earrings, and are adorned with garlands. Purport. With our present materialized senses, we cannot perceive anything of the Transcendental Lord. Our present senses are to be rectified by the process of devotional service, and then the Lord Himself becomes revealed to us. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that the Transcendental Lord can be perceived only by pure devotional service. So it is confirmed in the Vedas that only devotional service can lead one to the side of the Lord, and that only devotional service can reveal Him. In the Brahma Samhita, also, it is said that the Lord is always visible to the devotees whose eyes have been anointed with the tinge of devotional service. So we have to take information of the transcendental form of the Lord from persons who have actually seen Him with perfect eyes, smeared with devotional service. In the material world also, we do not always see things with our own eyes. We sometimes see through the experience of those who have actually seen or done things. If that is the process for experiencing a mundane object, it is more perfectly applicable in matters transcendental. So only with patience and perseverance can we realize the transcendental subject matter regarding the absolute truth and His different forms. He is formless to the neophytes, but He is in transcendental form. To the expert servitor. Text 5. This form, the second manifestation of the Purusha, is the source and indestructible seed of multifarious incarnations within the universe. From the particles and portions of this form, different living entities, like demigods, men, and others, are created. Purport. The Purusha, after creating innumerable universes in the Mahatattva, entered in each of them as the second Purusha, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. When he saw that within the universe there was only darkness and space, without a resting place, he filled half of the universe with water from his own perspiration and laid himself down on the same water. This water is called Garbhodaka. Then from his navel the stem of the lotus flower sprouted, and on the lotus petals the birth of Brahma, or the master engineer of the universal plan, took place. Brahma became the engineer of the universe, and the Lord Himself took charge of the maintenance of the universe as Vishnu. Brahma was generated from the Rajaguna of Prakriti, or the mode of passion in nature, and Vishnu became the Lord of the mode of goodness. Vishnu, being transcendental to all the modes, is always aloof from the materialistic affection. This has already been explained. From Brahma there is Rudra, Shiva, who is in charge of the mode of ignorance or darkness. He destroys the whole creation by the will of the Lord. Therefore all three, namely Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are incarnations of the Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. From Brahma, the other demigods like Daksha, Marichi, Manu, and others become incarnated to generate living entities within the universe. This Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is glorified in the Vedas in the hymns of the Garbha Stuti, which begin with the description of the Lord as having thousands of heads, and so on. The Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is the Lord of the universe, and although He appears to be lying within the universe, He is always transcendental. This also has already been explained. The Vishnu who is the plenary portion of the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu is the super soul of the universal life, and he is known as the maintainer of the universe, or Chirodakashayi Vishnu. So the three features of the original Purusha are thus understood, and all the incarnations within the universe are emanations from this Chirodakashayi Vishnu. In different millennia, there are different incarnations, and they are innumerable, although some of them are very prominent, such as Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Rama, Nrsimha, Vamana, and many others. These incarnations are called Leela incarnations. Then there are qualitative incarnations, such as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, or Rudra, who take charge of the different modes of material nature. Lord Vishnu is non-different from the personality of Godhead. Lord Shiva is in the marginal position between the personality of Godhead and the living entities, or jivas. Brahma is always a jiva tattva. The highest pious living being, or the greatest devotee of the Lord, is empowered with the potency of the Lord for creation, and he is called Brahma. His power is like the power of the sun, reflected in valuable stones and jewels. When there is no such living being to take charge of the post of Brahma, the Lord himself becomes a Brahma and takes charge of that post. Lord Shiva is not an ordinary living being. He is the plenary portion of the Lord, but because Lord Shiva is in direct touch with material nature, he is not exactly the same. He is not exactly in the same transcendental position as Lord Vishnu. The difference is like that between milk and yogurt. Yogurt is nothing but milk, and yet it cannot be used in the place of milk. The next incarnations are the Manus. Within 1 day's duration of the life of Brahma, which is calculated by our solar year as 4,300,000 times 1,000 years. There are 14 Manus. Therefore, there are 420 Manus in 1 month of Brahma, and 5,040 Manus in 1 year of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years of his age, and therefore there are 5,040 times 100, or 504,000 Manus in the duration of Brahma's life. There are innumerable universes with one Brahma in each of them, and all of them are created and annihilated during the breathing time of the Purusha. Therefore, one can simply imagine how many millions of Manus there are during one breath of the Purusha. The Manus who are prominent within this universe are as follows: Yagya as Swayambhuva Manu, Vibhu as Swarochisa Manu, Satyasena as Uttama Manu, Hari as Tamasa Manu, Vaikuntha as Raivata Manu, Ajita as Chakshusha Manu, Vamana as Vaibhaswata Manu. The present age is under the Vaibhaswata Manu. Sarvabhauma as Savarni Manu, Rishabha as Daksha Shavarni Manu, Vishwaksena as Brahma Savarni Manu, Dharmasetu as Dharma Savarni Manu, Sudama as Rudra Savarni Manu, Yogeshwara as Deva Savarni Manu, and Brihad Bhanu as Indra Savarni Manu. These are the names of one set of 14 Manus covering 4,300,000,000 solar years as described above. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Then there are the Yuga avatars. Then there are the Yuga avatars, or the incarnations of the millennia. The Yugas are known as Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. The incarnations of each yuga are of different color. The colors are white, red, black, and yellow. In the Dwapara Yuga, Lord Krishna is black color in black color appeared, and in the Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya in yellow color appeared. So all the incarnations of the Lord are mentioned in the revealed scriptures. There is no scope for an impostor to become an incarnation, for an incarnation must be mentioned in the Shastras. An incarnation does not declare himself to be an incarnation of the Lord, but great sages agree by the symptoms mentioned in the revealed scriptures. The features of the incarnation and the particular type of mission which he has to execute are mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Apart from the direct incarnations, there are innumerable empowered incarnations. They are also mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Such incarnations are directly as well as indirectly empowered. When they are directly empowered, they are called incarnations. But when they are indirectly empowered, they are called vibhutis. Directly empowered incarnations are the Kumaras, Narada, Prithu, Shesha, Ananta, and so on. As far as vibhutis are concerned, they are very explicitly described in the Bhagavad Gita in the Vibhuti Yoga chapter. And for all these different types of incarnations, the fountainhead is the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Text 6. First of all, in the beginning of creation, there were the 4 unmarried sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, who being situated in a vow of celibacy, underwent severe austerities for realization of the absolute truth. Purport. The creation of the material world is effected, maintained, and then again annihilated at certain intervals. So there are different names of the creations in terms of the particular types of Brahma, the father of the living beings in the creation. The father of the living beings, the Kumaras, as above mentioned, appeared in the Kumara creation of the material world. And to teach us the process of Brahman realization, they underwent a severe type of disciplinary action as bachelors. These Kumaras are empowered incarnations, and before executing the severe type of disciplinary actions, all of them became qualified brahmanas. This example suggests that one must first acquire the qualifications of a brahmana, not simply by birth, but also by quality, and then one can undergo the process of Brahman realization. Text 7. The supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices accepted the incarnation of a boar, the second incarnation, and for the welfare of the earth, he lifted the earth from the Nitha regions of the universe. Purport. The indication is that for each and every incarnation of the personality of Godhead, the particular function executed is also mentioned. There cannot be any incarnation without a particular function, and such functions are always extraordinary. They are impossible for any living being to perform. The incarnation of the boar was to take the earth out of Pluto's region of filthy matter. Picking up something from a filthy place is done by a boar, and the all-powerful personality of Godhead displayed this wonder to the Asuras, who had hidden the earth in such a filthy place. There is nothing impossible for the personality of Godhead, and although he played the part of a boar, by the devotees he is worshipped, staying always in transcendence. Text 8. In the millennium of the Rishis, the personality of Godhead accepted the third empowered incarnation in the form of Devarshi Narada, who was a great sage among the demigods. He collected expositions of the Vedas which deal with devotional service and which inspire non-fruitive action. Purport. The great Rishi Narada, who was an empowered incarnation of the personality of Godhead, propagates devotional service all over the universe. All great devotees of the Lord all over the universe and in different planets and species of life are his disciples. Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, is also one of his disciples. Narada is the author of Narada Pancharatra, which is the exposition of the Vedas particularly for the devotional service of the Lord. This Narada Pancharatra trains the karmis, or fruitive workers, to achieve liberation from the bondage of fruitive work. The conditioned souls are mostly attracted by fruitive work because they want to enjoy life by the sweat of their own brows. The whole universe is full of fruitive workers in all species of life. The fruitive workers include all kinds of economic development plans. But the law of nature provides that every action has a resultant reaction, and the performer of the work is bound up by such reactions, good or bad. The reaction of good work is comparative material prosperity, whereas the reaction of bad work is comparative material distress. But material conditions, either in so-called happiness or in so-called distress, are all meant ultimately for distress only. Foolish materialists have no information of how to obtain eternal happiness in the unconditional state. Sri Narada informs these foolish fruitive workers how to realize the reality of happiness. He gives direction to the diseased men of the world, how one's present engagement can lead one to the path of spiritual emancipation. The physician directs the patient to take treated milk in the form of yogurt for his sufferings from indigestion due to his taking another milk preparation. So the cause of the disease and the remedy of the disease may be the same, but it must be treated by an expert physician like Narada. The Bhagavad Gita also gives the same solution of serving the Lord by the fruits of one's labor. That will lead one to the path of Naishkarmya, or liberation. Text 9. In the fourth incarnation, the Lord became Nara and Narayana, the twin sons of the wife of King Dharma. Thus he undertook severe and exemplary penances to control the senses. Purport. As King Rishabha advised his sons, tapasya, or voluntarily acceptance of penance for realization of the transcendence, is the only duty of the human being. It was so done by the Lord himself in an exemplary manner to teach us. The Lord is very kind to the forgetful souls. He therefore comes himself and leaves behind necessary instructions, and also sends his good sons as representatives to call all the conditioned souls back to Godhead. Recently, within the memory of everyone, Lord Chaitanya also appeared for the same purpose, to show special favor to the fallen souls of this age of iron industry. The incarnation of Narayana is worshipped still at Badari Narayana on the range of the Himalayas. Text 10. The fifth incarnation, named Lord Kapila, is the foremost among perfected beings. He gave an exposition of the creative elements and metaphysics to Asuri Brahmana, for in course of time this knowledge had been lost. Purport. The sum total of creative elements is 24 in all. Each and every one of them is explicitly explained in the system of Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy is generally called metaphysics by the European scholars. The etymological meaning of Sankhya is that which explains very lucidly by analysis of the material elements. This was done for the first time by Lord Kapila, who is said herein to be the fifth in the line of incarnations. Text 11. Wow. Hare Krishna. Wow. Christmas is coming early. Hare Krishna. Mahaprabhuji. Hare Krishna. Text 11.
Japa. There's so much seva, I get overwhelmed.
Japa is also seva.
Oh, that's a good one to do all the time.
Text 11. Thank you. The sixth incarnation of the Purusha was the son of the sage Atri. He was born of the womb of Anasuya, who prayed for an incarnation. He spoke on the subject of transcendence to Alarka, Prahlad, and others, Yadu, Haihaya, etc. Purport. The Lord incarnated himself as Dattatreya, the son of Rishi Atri and Anasuya. The history of the birth of Dattatreya as an incarnation of the Lord is mentioned in the Brahmanda Purana in connection with the story of the devoted wife. It is said there that Anasuya, the wife of Rishi Atri, prayed before the Lords Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva as follows: My lords, if you are pleased with me, and if you desire me to ask you for some sort of blessings, then I pray that you combine together to become my son. This was accepted by the Lords, and as Dattatreya, the Lord expounded the philosophy of the spirit soul, and especially instructed Alarka, Prahlad, Yadu, Haihaya, and so on. Text 12. The seventh incarnation was Yagya, the son of Prajapati Ruchi and his wife Akuti. He controlled the period during the reign of Swayambhuva Manu and was assisted by demigods such as his son Yama. Purport. The administrative posts occupied by the demigods for maintaining the regulations of the material world are offered to the highly elevated, pious living beings. When there is a scarcity of such pious living beings, the Lord incarnates himself as Brahma, Prajapati, Indra, and so on, and takes up the charge. During the period of Swayambhuva Manu, the present period is of Vaivaswata Manu, there was no suitable living being who could occupy the post of Indra, the king of the Indraloka, heaven, planet. The Lord himself at that time became Indra. Assisted by his own sons like Yama and other demigods, Lord Yagya ruled the administration of the universal affairs. Text 13. The eighth incarnation was King Rishabha, the son of Nabhi and his wife Merudevi. In this incarnation, the Lord showed the path of perfection, which is followed by those who have fully controlled their senses and who are honored by all orders of life. Purport. The society of human beings is naturally divided into 8 by orders and statuses of life, the 4 divisions of occupation, and the 4 divisions of cultural advancement. The intelligent class, the administrative class, the productive class, and the laborer class are the 4 divisions of occupation, and the student life, the householder's life, retired life, and renounced life are the 4 statuses of cultural advancement towards the path of spiritual realization. Out of these, The renounced order of life, or the order of sannyasa, is considered the highest of all, and a sannyasi is constitutionally the spiritual master for all the orders and divisions. In the sannyasa order, there are also 4 stages of upliftment toward perfection. These stages are called Kutichaka, Bahudaka, Paribrajakacharya, and Paramahansa. The Paramahansa stage of life is the highest stage of perfection. This order of life is respected by all others. Maharaj Rishabha, the king of the son of King Nabi and Meru Devi, was an incarnation of the Lord, and he instructed his sons to follow the path of perfection by tapasya, which sanctifies one's existence and enables one to attain the stage of spiritual happiness, which is eternal and ever increasing. Every living being is searching after happiness, but no one knows where eternal and unlimited happiness is obtainable. Foolish men seek after material sense pleasure as a substitute for real happiness, but such foolish men forget that temporary so-called happiness derived from sense pleasures is also enjoyed by the dogs and hogs. No animal, bird, or beast is bereft of this sense pleasure. In every species of life, including the human form of life, such happiness is immensely obtainable. The human form of life, however, is not meant for such cheap happiness. The human life is meant for attaining eternal and unlimited happiness by spiritual realization. This spiritual realization is obtained by tapasya, or undergoing voluntarily the path of penance and abstinence from material pleasure. Those who have been trained for abstinence in material pleasures are called dhira, or men undisturbed by the senses. Only these dhiras can accept the orders of sannyasa, and they can gradually rise to the status of the Paramahansa, which is adored by all members of society. King Rishabha propagated this mission, and at the last stage, he became completely aloof from the material bodily needs, which is a rare stage, not to be imitated by foolish men, but to be worshipped by all. Text 14. O Brahmanas, in the 9th incarnation, the Lord, prayed for by sages, accepted the body of a king, Prithu, who cultivated the land to yield various products, and for that reason the earth was beautiful and attractive. Purport. Before the advent of King Prithu, there was great havoc of maladministration due to the vicious life of the previous king, the father of Maharaj Prithu. The intelligent class of men, namely the sages and the brahmanas, not only prayed for the Lord to come down, but also dethroned the previous king. It is the duty of the king to be pious and thus look after the all-around welfare of the citizens. Whenever there is some negligence on the part of the king in discharging his duty, an intelligent class of men must dethrone him. Memo to Trump. Sorry. Comes out every once in a while. What can I do? The intelligent class of men, however, do not enjoy the royal throne because they have much more important duties for the welfare of the public. Instead of occupying the royal throne, they prayed for the incarnation of the Lord, and the Lord came as Maharaj Prithu. Real intelligent men or qualified brahmanas never aspire for political posts. Maharaj Prithu excavated many produces from the earth, and thus not only did the citizens become happy to have such a good king, but the complete sight of the earth also became beautiful and attractive. Hare Krishna. So I'm going to stop here. Time for me to rest my voice. And just one little reflection I was having as we were reading, because some of us haven't read this book before. What we're hearing really is a very, very brief overview of the history of the universe. The Bhagavatam is actually history. It's actually a document, historical document. And history of this universe is very long. I mean, basically it's talking about one day of Brahma, but actually it starts from the birth of Brahma in the beginning of the creation, and the whole life of Brahma is the whole duration of the universe. But periodically, during day and night of Brahma, it's partially annihilated, and these different incarnations of Krishna appear. It's therefore, if we take it as just a story, then it's like a fairy tale or some kind of storybook. But it's actually a historical document, and therefore it's fascinating to the devotees. To the devotees of God, when they begin to hear this, and hear just how everything unfolded, and how Krishna entered and assisted in all the necessity of the development of the different phases of the creation and phases of history. It gives a view, it gives an overview of things, which is so broad and so deep that unless one's actually a devotee, not just reading for entertainment or reading for, to find out something, some information content, then one can't understand. But if one's a devotee and is actually interested in knowing more about God, because there's a lot of talk in this world about how God is great, and different teachers and different religious groups, they all talk about the same thing, God is great, but just how great, or the details of it, are woefully lacking in most scriptures. So the Bhagavatam gives this, overview, and it's actually a summary of all the Vedas also. Nigamakalpa in the beginning. Nigamakalpa Tiror Galitam Palam. It's the ripened fruit of the Vedas, of the knowledge that's contained in the Vedas, in a form or in a size and in a way that's assimilable by the Kali Yuga souls. That's us. We can't understand very much, but even with our capacity, Bhagavatam's a lot to take in all in one lifetime. To assimilate all the knowledge of the Bhagavatam in one lifetime is a big deal. So that's what's going on in this chapter and in the whole Bhagavatam. And the details of all these different personalities that are being described here are gradually unfold as the literature unfolds. That was my reflection while I was reading. Any others? Reflections? Comments? Anything stuck in your mind?
So these personalities you just described, they are indirect?
Now, Kalpataru is inquiring in all these personalities that have just been described or being described, because we still haven't come to the end of them. They're indirect. What do you mean by indirect?
Like earlier, like before that, there was mention of,
She says before there was mention of the words direct, direct and indirect. Yeah, read it so that we can understand what you're referring to. The first part of this chapter is describing the different phases of the beginning of the creation. And the beginning of the creation is when the cloud of material energy is comes from Mahavishnu, and then is glanced at by Mahavishnu, and the souls, the spiritual energy in the form of the souls and in the form of time are injected into that material energy, which is like an unmanifested just cloud. It's described to be like a cloud. And then when that starts to transform, starts to, it's like in the beginning of a pregnancy in the woman. In the beginning, there's just a reaction of the male and the female's secretions. And when the soul is there, when the soul actually enters, then it stays and it starts to transform. And then gradually the parts of the body are created, and gradually, then it comes out as a human form, human body. But without that seed, without that soul, then the same ingredients in the woman's body just comes out every month. And nothing comes out, nothing is created. So that's like the analogy. That's the process of creation. It's the same, but in a universal scope. So the direct creation is done by Mahavishnu, and then he expands himself into each one of those universes, as we heard in Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then from him comes Brahma, and all of the different parts of the universe that were already created by the mind or the planning. Because every time we do something, we plan something with our mind and then we execute it. So Mahavishnu, he plans it all out, and then he executes. And the planning stage is the direct stage. It's called Sarga. And then when Brahma comes out, and he takes all that energy and all the different parts of the universe and the souls, and he indirectly does the creation. He engineers. That's why this word is used, engineer. He takes the ingredients and everything's already planned out by Vishnu, and then he engineers it. It comes out of his body and he puts it in the right places and recreates the universe as it was before. That's direct and indirect and indirect. And all the creations after that are different souls who are indirectly, assisting. And then periodically, when the souls aren't capable of actually getting together themselves, then Krishna comes as an incarnation to explain something or to do something that helps the universe progress.
Yeah, a little bit I got confused because in here it says, within this universe, from Shirodakshaya Vishnu.
Yeah.
Right? And then here it says that those are different types of fountainhead of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So
Well, because first of all, when Garbhodakshaya Vishnu comes, Brahma comes, and the universal form, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is called the universal form also of the Lord. And then from him, Shirodakshaya Vishnu expands, and he enters into each and every soul of every single living entity and directs them. Therefore, he's directing. And Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is directing indirectly through him. But it's the same. It says direct and indirect, but it's actually the same person, just expanding himself into another expansion to continue the creation. And another way of looking at that indirect and direct is that when it comes time, when Mahavishnu breathes in, and it comes time for all of that creation to wind back up into the body of Vishnu, then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu and Shirodakshaya Vishnu, they come also back, and time, and all those incarnations, they come back into the body of Mahavishnu, including the souls. So they're temporary forms. They're not temporary because they're there in the body of the Mahavishnu, but they're manifested temporarily. So in a sense, everything is eternal, because all the energy, everything comes back into the body of Mahavishnu, and it's there, but it's not manifested externally to the vision of in the world. Yes, Hannah.
So
The other day I said that. Oh, you're having trouble now. I've got to answer something. Go ahead.
Whenever the soul leaves
When-
the body.
I said that whenever the soul leaves the body, then
7-month period. where the
7-month
soul is
period.
inactive.
where the soul is inactive.
Okay, so from what you just said, whenever he breathes in those everything, is the soul also inactive again?
Yes. Inside the body of Mahavishnu.
So
It's like
the
he's
same
sleeping.
thing?
It's like he's sleeping. But
Is
in
it more
between,
peaceful?
is it more peaceful?
Or is it the same effect?
It's more peaceful, but it's not satisfying because the soul's active. The soul needs action. The nature of the soul is to be active. It's like deep sleep. If you don't get deep sleep, then you don't feel peaceful.
Yeah.
The more deep sleep you get, then the more peaceful you feel. The more your body and mind and everything is regenerated. So it's like deep sleep. The soul goes into, just like when the soul goes into dream, there's dreaming, there's deep sleep, dreaming, and waking state. These are the 3 states in the material world. And when all of those are happening within the dream of Mahavishnu, sorry. All of those are happening within the dream of Mahavishnu. We are living literally right now within the dream of Mahavishnu. And he just goes to sleep at night, and then everything's finished. No, that's not right. He's breathing in and breathing out, but Lord Brahma, when he goes to sleep at night, then part of the universe is finished. And when Lord Mahavishnu breathes in, the whole thing is finished. This is inconceivable. In one breath, the whole of material creation and all the things that go on, creations of day and night of Brahma, and universal dissolutions and recreations, and 311 trillion years of our time goes by in one breath, and out breath and in breath of Lord Vishnu. That's how great God is. So when we think from our perspective, how horrible this war, this natural disaster, this and that, how can God create such suffering? But from his point of view, it's not even a blink of the eye. All those things happen, it's not even a blink of his eye. So we're only suffering, and we're seeing the suffering, and we're feeling all these things because of our perspective, being controlled by the material energy. And the less we are controlled by the material energy, the less suffering we feel, and the less we become disturbed when we see what's going on in the material world. When the hippies, they used to have these, what they call God's eyes. They make a stick, and then they make yarn, all different shapes and colors of yarn, and they used to call it the God's eye. Anyway, that was a hallucination type God's eye. But the Srimad-Bhagavatam shows you really how to see through God's eyes. And when you do that, when you actually accept it submissively and hear it like that, then you get it. You actually get all these things. Your vision of the world changes, your vision of yourself changes, and then we can know what to do, what not to do. Okay, I gotta rest my voice. Tomorrow morning's coming up pretty soon. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everyone out in cyberspace. Thanks all the devotees here. We'll see you tomorrow for the continuation of the wonderful stories of the incarnations of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.